So you mentioned it's mostly retail prices or the prices that cloud providers quote for like a managed GPU service essentially. So I would assume if someone's buying a lot of GPUs, they also get like heavy discounts and so on. So that the actual price can differ significantly from the retail price.
So there's a lot of nuances to data. So how do we detect anomaly? And a lot of people just fishing. How do you think it is real, right? How do we verify those listings? So I'm really new to the GPU world. The learning curve has been so fun for me. So I went to Chips past year, get to know a lot of my friends. I didn't know what they do before I became friends with them, obviously. I was like, oh, actually, chip designing. What's happening?
It's a big and challenging problem to solve, right? So you need to start somewhere. So where are you starting and how are you approaching that sort of early go-to-market motion?
It's all relative. So if you compare my problem to cure cancer, it's nothing the same scale. My product roadmap is pretty ambitious. Some product I would say really cutting edge and I really spend a lot of time to think through. Some product I think can make impact right away is not hard problem to solve. Data is a dirty job.
The Cloud Frontier podcast is brought to you by SimplyBlock. In this bi-weekly podcast, we explore cloud infrastructure startups, founder journeys, and discuss cutting-edge cloud technologies. Join us as we uncover the latest innovations shaping the future of cloud computing. Hello, welcome everyone. Another episode of Cloud Frontier podcast. Today I have Carmen Li, the founder of SiliconData, on the show. Welcome, Carmen.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Excited to have you. And, obviously we always start with the introduction of the guest. So please tell us, a little bit more about yourself. Like what did you do in the past? What's SiliconData about? And, just anything you want to share at the very beginning.
Yeah, happy to go as far as, 40 years back. So my name is Carmen. Obviously, I started SiliconData. My background is financial services. So I started my career in high frequency trading in Chicago. So I did that for 4 or 5 years, and then always stayed in financial institutions. And then my last job is managing Bloomberg's global data integrations. So I'll cover all content, all products globally. So it's a super exciting role. I get to sort of create a lot of cutting edge collaborations with the biggest cloud providers and AI companies, etc. But my background is pretty like everywhere. So I was born and raised in Hangzhou, China. And I went to Singapore for middle school and high school. I came to the US for college, stayed here for work, obviously, and then, graduate school and everything after. But I do travel quite a bit. But so I love to have a global company where the product can serve people from all different markets. And then I love to have people contributing to the company mission all over the world as well.
Oh, that's indeed you went a little bit back, and so what's SiliconData about? So tell us more about your current startup.
Yes, so I'm really excited about SiliconData for a few reasons. So I number one, my whole thesis, right, before I dive into my company, my whole thesis is I do believe in compute as a part of resource for humanity will be the biggest resource going forward. If you think about compare that with electricity and natural gas, crude oil markets, I believe in a few years, compute will surpassing all those markets. So that's my fundamental thesis. So if that thesis is true, then if you compare compute markets currently with any other commodity markets I mentioned, you realize that, hey, compute is growing really fast. However, the financial infrastructure or just pure infrastructure layer is really hasn't really catching up. That's actually have a lot of consequences. Number one, risk management, risk transfer, price discovery, data transparency. Just in general, the accessibility of the industry is low because of that, right? Especially if you have learning experience with energy markets before, you'll realize that, hey, compute is definitely on this trajectory, if not a much steeper sort of curve. So that's my observation during my past roles. So the company is really keen to provide the industry with data transparency, financial products, and other benchmarking tools to help the compute from a third-party transparency point of view.
Wow, and so essentially, how I understand it, you're essentially building like the financial infrastructure for compute markets, right?
Yes. So there's a few layers to that, right? So we have to dive into details. So number one is if you think about compute, almost you replace compute with, for example, electricity or natural gas, right? Any large technology company can be the American Airlines, right? American Airlines consume a lot of crude oil, obviously, they fly planes, right? Just like the technology company, they consume a lot of compute, right? They produce AI solutions. If American Airlines, they are very, very mature industry where they just say, hey, if I need crude oil, I need to hedge my price fluctuation, which they do fluctuate. There's a lot of options for them to do that, right? They can enter a forward contract, they can do futures in the open markets, they can do a lot of things, depends on their risk profiles and the situation, right? It's very flexible and cheap, efficient, right? And then you flip into compute, and then the product instruments is really not there to support any kind of risk transfer, right? So some of my friends who are looking to finance the data center build out, or who are the financier who want to finance those build outs, they have a lot of problem with looking, okay, how do I sort of forecasting the cash flow? How do I benchmarking it once the particular assets is on my book? How do I really manage the exposures and make sure there's sort of a benchmarking, right, against it? So the data is a big problem. And then the financial products is not a problem because you really need a financial product to transfer the risks. So there are two layers. So the data point, which is transparency, and the financial product, which is a mechanism for risk transfer, are lacking. And also other benchmarking problems that people are having, right? And as more people come in, join the industry, which we want that to be, right? We want compute and AI to impact a lot more industries, a lot more companies. You will see people who might not really have that kind of expertise join in, like the Fortune 500 companies, right? I'm sure they're very sophisticated in any other areas, but come to this, we're like, okay, how do I benchmark this? How do I think about the cost? How do I think about the carbon? How do I think about the underlying compute efficiency, right? So they need a lot of benchmarking services. So I do think there's really a need for creating those kind of solutions.
Very, very clear on that thesis, and I guess it really comes from that unique background that you had, sort of on one hand, like trading financial instruments like options, right, and then sort of going a little bit closer to them, to the cloud markets, right? So but how did you make the decision to sort of like go out there and just do it also on your own, right? So first time, I understand you're a first time founder doing it on your own, right? Like how did you decide to do that?
Yeah, it's really funny. If a lot of friends grew up with me, and then once I told them I started my company, they were like, "Oh yeah, we totally knew that. You're 100% gonna do that. They always knew." So I always sort of know I want to do my own startups, right? Throughout my 20 years professional career journey. However, I never had the idea that I really believed that I have an edge, right? Whenever I think about something, right, I'm like, why do I think I can be the person, execute it, and then really creating this value proposition for clients in the industry? I never had the idea that I was like, oh yeah, I'm the person, and I was that passionate, right? So this is the first time of this idea. It was like, oh my god, I see a huge gap everywhere, and no one is addressing that. And I do believe I have all the skill sets and the connection and understanding to really dive really quickly, deeply, and then really create values right away. And then I think just based on the way I fundraise and sort of prove that, I'm definitely not a 20 years old founder. I'm not that talented. I spent a lot of time in the industry. And then which interesting is, I think a lot of things are very intuitive to me. May not be as intuitive to others because they haven't spent time in this very, I guess you can consider, niche industry. So experience sometimes does come in pretty handy with that. So yeah, once I had this idea, wasn't like back and forth. It was like, oh my god, I'm gonna do it. I just gonna do it. It wasn't even a consideration. I just told my husband, hey, I'm gonna leave my last job and start this company.
Wow, and so what was the first thing you've sort of done? Did you like go into fundraising as you mentioned, or did you actually start like diving deeper into the space? Because it's a bold decision, right? Like still to quit your job and just go to do something that like sounds fun, but then it obviously always turns out that like you go into the rabbit hole deeper and deeper, and you learn new things, right?
Yeah, I think both at the same time. So number one, I was like, why hasn't none of them done anything like that, right? Like what could go wrong if we'll make these things will work, right? So a few things will cause SiliconNavigator to fail right away. Number one, if no one uses compute tomorrow, there's no need for managing anything, patch anything, right? So that's I don't think that's gonna happen, right? And then there are other reasons where I think could fail this particular thesis, but I don't believe none of them is actually true. So I was doing a lot of industry analysis and talking to people who are kind of in the industry to validate my idea, right? And then why I'm the only person spotting that? Like, what's wrong, right? I'm not the smartest person in any room, so why I'm the only person see this, right? In a lot of conversations, and then also I'm having conversation with people who are the experts, the veterans, who also have a lot of backings, right? And then right away, they definitely see sort of the perfect match I have with this particular computing industry. So I think both things happen simultaneously, and I got extremely fortunate and lucky that the company was founded right away. And then I can really concentrate on building products and solving problems than spending too much time in fundraising.
Yeah, that's obviously really, really helpful, right? Because obviously a lot of first-time founders just like it's completely opposite, right? Like instead of building, they sort of try to fundraise, and it sort of like distracts them from actually figuring out.
If you don't have
Right.
a deck, I'm very embarrassed to say that.
Yeah. And so now like you decided to do that and you sort of raise some money, but I guess you're still, it's a big and challenging problem to solve, right? So you need to start somewhere. So where are you starting and how are you approaching that sort of early go-to-market motion?
Yeah, I think super fun problem to solve. I'm really happy. Like every day is my best day because every day I feel like I'm a little bit closer to where I want to get. It's not so. It's all relative, right? So if you compare my problem to cure cancer, it's nothing the same skill. I think it's a relatively easy problem to be 100% transparent. So there, my product roadmap is pretty ambitious. Some product I would say really cutting edge and I really spend a lot of time to think through. Some product I think can make impact right away is not hard problem to solve, right? Data is a dirty job. It's a dirty product where everyday data comes in, you have to cleansing it, you have to normalize it. It's a lot of work. It's a manufacturing job, right? But it's not the most difficult thing in the world, especially given my experience and the team's experience. But every day is just one day of accumulation of new data sets, right? So you think about creating a brand new product, you want a longer history to validate our thesis and normalize the data, etc., etc. So for me, time is a constraint. Like every day I have new data. Every time I have a new data set come in, gigabyte data, I'm so excited. That was the best thing ever for me. So every day I was like, whoa, like a lot more data. It's amazing. So this data part is pretty straightforward, at least for my team. And then what was another question? Another problem?
Yeah, I mean, like, how are you sort of approaching that go-to-market motion? Because I guess you would start probably with like I saw you starting with a single or dual product, right? So we have some sort of GPU prices, sort of history and quotations, right? So I understand this is just like an early start, right? And you're gonna obviously build upon that.
That's a great question. So thank you for mentioning my product. So there are two products at beta, and it will be for launch next month. So one is called SiliconNavigator. So if you think about SiliconNavigator, almost like there's I don't know 50, 70 chips that people are using right now from NVIDIA, the H100 to L40, the GBs, and all the way to hopefully AMD chips as well. So we will have a lot of metrics that we think are very relevant. There's so many metrics, right? So we pick the ones that we think can be more relevant to others, right? The flop 16s instead of flop 64s, for example, memory bandwidth. And then the interesting thing we have is the retail prices globally. Every day we update that, and also the rental prices per GPU per hour, right, globally. Obviously, you can separate them out to spot and reserve, etc., and where you are globally, the price can be different. But the goal is to give the price transparency so you can take a look and help people make that decision. Should you buy a GPU or should you rent something? Right? You can do the calculation hopefully pretty easily. And then we also have metrics flop per watt. So the energy efficiency, you think about that way, or a dollar per watt. So it's like, are you getting your money worth essentially, right? There's a lot more nuances than that, but those are 30 quick metrics people can just take a look and then compare. So SiliconNavigator, obviously, you can build on the web. You can think of almost like different stocks tickers, right? They change the price, and also like API, so you can integrate with that API. It's pretty RESTful API everywhere, so it's pretty easy. And the second product, SiliconCarbon, and so I'm personally very passionate about carbon ESG related sort of themes products. And also, I think it's actually really, really helpful, hopefully, to a lot of clients. So one of the things I realized that once AI workflow kick off, you hear less corporates, especially corporates, talk about ESG goals. It's not that they don't care about carbon. It's more about how are they going to start, right? There's no transparency. How are they going to know how much carbon emission each training job or fine tuning or rag going to cost? If they don't know that, how are they going to hedge that or take out this carbon? Right? It's a very hard problem. So the product I think is really really amazing. Is if you tell me which chips you're using, how many hours you use it for, where you are globally, right? Country, zip code, if you are on premise, or you tell me which cloud provider you're currently using, all the big threes, right? And then we will tell you the carbon footprint for that particular workflow. And we'll give exact metrics how we calculate it. I believe, as you probably can get from this point, transparency is a big thing in my personal philosophy. So I give exactly how I get those data from, which data sources, the energy source for GPU is all transparent. How many hours you put in? How do we calculating the carbon emission based on energy, which is on the grid for most countries? We're looking to update the data with off-the-grid energy sources, mostly more green sources off the grid. So we're looking how to put that data in and then make sure it's more relevant and updated daily. So that's for SiliconCarbon. It's really a pleasure. Also API integration, which we are integrating with a few platforms. So we're a small part of a bigger problem, but we do want to make sure we do our part right and then help people make a decision.
Wow, but it's a lot of data, right? So it's like a lot of data that you actually have to collect to get into that sort of simple output, right? So how do you do it? So let's focus maybe first on the GPU side, right? So you mentioned it's mostly retail prices or the prices that cloud providers quote for like a managed GPU service, essentially, right? So that's I guess easier, but then I would assume if someone's buying a lot of GPUs, they also get like heavy discounts and so on, so that actually the actual price can differ significantly from the retail price, right?
You're 100% right. And then also don't forget, not everything's brand new at this point, right? You can buy secondhand, right? So there's a lot of nuances to the data. So that's where the plan, how do we detect anomaly? And a lot of people just fishing, right? Hey, I'm selling this for $10,000, even though the sticker is $30,000, right? How do you think it is real, right? How do we verify those listings? So there's a lot of work come to that. We use some of the AI workflow to detect this particular seller, random site, is it trustworthy? Maybe not, right? So we flag numbers if we don't think that makes sense. And then we have a human going in to sort of verify that. So that being said, there's a lot of work can be done, better work can be done based on the data quality. So the retail is actually the easier part because, right, you just look at the machine and they're selling it sort of as a GPU base. The rental is even more interesting. As you mentioned, there's public cloud, right? Public cloud, they have their prices. The reserve and the spot can get those pretty easily. And then they are second-tier cloud providers. You think about the CoreWeaves, the Lambdas. There's a lot
right,
of them.
The specific, like the GPU cloud providers,
Yeah,
as you mentioned.
40 of them globally, if not more.
There's a lot new ones emerging, right?
We have probably 60 different places we see. At least they publish some version of the data. They might not be all accurate. Sometimes it's a variation. They just list it and say context else doesn't mean anything. But the actual price you pay, as you said, there are sticker prices. You get 20% off, 30% off, depends on how long you do it, right? So again, a lot of calculation going to those GPUs. And sometimes they post, it's H100. Doesn't mean anything, right? What's the specification? But that matters a lot. Do you have infrared advance and where you are at? If you have GPUs in France, the cost that could be very different than you have GPU clusters in Texas, right? So there's a lot of nuances to it. It's really exciting. So we get data, to your point, we get data from all different sources. We have, obviously, we have a special relationship with some of the exchanges that we have API integration. We get data directly from those, we consider them spot exchanges, right? So the way I look at it, right, is financial services that is sort of centric, where all those markets are considered spot markets. So almost like the NASDAQ and the NYSEs of the world. So I'm sort of an aggregator. You can say like mini Bloomberg, like take all those data in, and then based on the trading volumes, right? Some the price is more meaningful essentially than someone, let's say I start a company tomorrow and I have one GPU in my basement. and I sell it to Rob, right? Grant to you. The price may be less meaningful to the markets. So basically on trading volumes, right? We decide how much weight we should put on.
Right. So you also sort of like figure out that the significance of the quotation or of the price, right?
Exactly. So it's interesting. So sometimes um, we don't publish that because we think we're gonna really get some people mad. Is we don't include your data, maybe because you're not as relevant as you like to think you are. Yeah, just the way if you are not S&P 500 stock portfolio, not S&P 500, I'm sure you're a great company, but you are not as meaningful as to a lot of people than the company in S&P 500 index, right? It's very similar.
Right. And I guess one thing when I think about it is also, when you want to create some sort of like price transparency like that, you also have to sort of assume that the price of GPUs will sort of commoditize over time. How do you think about that?
No, I 100% agree with that. And then I like that to happen to be as a human being, right? So I think compute financial products, it's not, I don't think it's something people should invest. It's not something like S&P 500 should invest in the underlying or gold, wherever, depends on how you believe, what do you believe, right? Commodity indexes is something for people to hedge their risks, manage exposures. It's a financial, I believe, at least that's my goal to create this product for that reason. If you believe the compute price is going to go up and you're going to 100% long that price, I mean, it's up, it's demand supply, and then you obviously have a way to express your opinion. But I do believe that the compute cost is supposed to go down in the long run. But doesn't mean the market will become smaller, right? Because people can consume more, essentially. And then obviously, if you look at per flop, that's something I would track more. That should go down even more. Let's say we have really powerful chip. The hourly price may go up, maybe, because this is so freaking powerful, right? Sorry. And then if you have, other chips may be cheaper, but then per flop is actually more expensive.
Yeah, and regarding the other product, because for example, I'm seeing those kind of trends where there's like a lot of data centers being built in Finland or Greenland or Iceland, right? Where obviously the cooling is sort of cheaper and more eco-friendly, right? Like natural cooling, sort of. So do you see that maybe those kind of places will really emerge as sort of places where people will really like sort of start investing a lot into to sort of reduce the cost of compute, first of all, but secondly also to meet their ESG goals, right? So sort of to have an offer for an enterprises to meet their ESG goals through investments like that.
Yes, so you're 100% right. We track 5,000 data centers about that globally. So we do see a big increase in those Nordic regions, and I think it's great because they generally have lower carbon footprint than some other places around the world. I'm not gonna flag any country, but I think yes, that's true. But then if you consider ingress egress, they move data in, depends on inferencing or training workload, then some kind of consideration might be in place and how real time you want to be if you're somewhere else in the clients and your data centers are around the world. So there's a lot of other considerations. But yeah, if you're looking at carbon and other particular energy efficiency, then maybe not a bad choice. And also if you think through when people looking at ROI for their AI workflows, usually unfortunately at this point they factor in really just purely the cost, the rental cost. And the rental cost, obviously, majority of rental costs, like 80-90%, is because of GPU cost, the asset cost. And the only small part is because of electricity cost. And then, electricity doesn't cost the same everywhere, right? And there's the European market is very different, even in the US, right? Different grid have different prices all the time. So it really depends where you are. The electricity price might fluctuate. And it doesn't mean the lower electricity price is the lower the carbon. In fact, a lot of times I see the electricity price might be extremely low, but the carbon is really high, right? So if you factor that in, how much depends on how much you think carbon should really cost you per ton. Do you think $250 per ton or 500? Or it's a big range, right? Then you add that on, then that will change your cost of your AI workflow. But yeah, I think I sort of go on the rabbit hole on that. But I do think I do like to see more data centers where there's a lot of abundant green energies and then natural cooling. I think those all things make sense.
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking out loud, like what could be the places which can really benefit out of the like massive, sort of gold rush with GPUs, right? And that's like a natural thought because they combine sort of efficiency and low carbon emissions, right? And obviously they're also sort of mostly developed countries, so safe to invest into and so on, right?
Yeah, and also if you believe every country, sovereign country, will have its own, suppose in the future, right, its own large language models, their own AI clusters, then everybody gonna start building up some form of data center AI centric data centers. We know there's a lot of places, even Southeast Asia, it's pretty hot, but there's still a lot of data centers down there, right?
Yeah, obviously. Okay, and so you have those two products now. So how do you think about expanding from there? Like, do you plan for now to market those two products, sort of find like a good market momentum for those two products, and obviously go to next financing rounds and so on, or do you actually plan to expand your portfolio into more products?
So both. So those two products actually very essential for me to creating my next few products. So this, I think, the upside for the data world is it's the underlying data. It can be shared and it can be create different data sets. Because a lot of the derived data is based on really the similar set of raw data we've been gathering. So those two are the initial product. I think can be helpful to all people. And next year, hopefully end of this year, we will have a few more products. Some of them you can consider them almost like SaaS tools or on-premise SaaS. And then in the future, we'll have more financial products. Financial products do require a lot more, historical data sets, a lot of, regular oversight. So that's will be early next year. And then we will have a few more. You can consider other derived data sets that were impacting the compute world. So for me, is how can I help just this particular compute industry? This can be token related data, can be anything related to energy, as you're talking about the carbons, can be anything related to supply chain, right? We're talking about an end product right now, but you think about a financial product, it's really to help people find out the demand supply cost point, right? So anything impacting the supply side and demand side will be very essential for me to bring the intelligence to people, right? So when planning things, we think through how do you treat products. Any intelligence from impacting supply and demand side will be very helpful. Supply side will be from ASML, TSMC to design houses to anything related to large language models. The demand side can be any corporates, how they use their data, their cloud, on-premise, shifting, inferencing, giving up, training, right? So there's different demand for that. And then chip design, if everything moves to chiplets, right? What does it mean? If everything moves to edge computing, what does it mean, right? If people start things getting so much more optimized to do inferencing, right? Which is we want that to go. What does that mean for supply demand, right? So all of the related data sets we're taking a look at.
Right. So that's also like a little bit like a platform to make also potentially predictions, right? If someone wants to really bet on the market big or make some really big decisions, they also like need that transparency to make the decision, right? While today it's like AI is big, let's just buy H100s and that's it, as many as possible, right? And get them running. But indeed, like, is this the best thing you can actually do long term, right? Is this the right decision for a business? Probably a lot of people like don't know really, right?
You might not need H100s. All H100 might not be enough, right? So it's not like one thing solve all problems. And then I would like to say that we usually provide data, and I like to consider them as factual as they can be. And the prediction is something that probably was secondary. I believe that people should make their own predictions, right? I'm not going to tell you where the price is going to go, but I'll tell you the trends. I will tell you where the curve is. I will tell the burning rate. I will tell you what the benchmark is. And then I believe people should essentially make their own decision.
Yeah, makes total sense. And how do you go about early sales? So where do you stand with the product? Like, is it generally available? Is it in beta? In testing? Pilots with some customers? Like how does it look like at the moment?
Yeah, it's a great question. I should have sent you the beta platform before today's call.
I'd love to have a view, actually, a sneak peek.
right now it's complimentary beta. We open to select clients. Actually, I spent a lot less time, to be honest, in right now with client engagements than with product. So I was really surprised. Obviously, I'm the only non-technical person on the team right now. Everyone's engineers and doing our work in the backend infrastructure. So what I didn't really manage sort of the social media. And the last time I checked LinkedIn, which I haven't posted much, I have 1,600 followers. I was like, where did people coming from? I don't have product out
Oh,
yet.
wow. Wow.
I haven't done obviously marketing. You see like LinkedIn break down the
Right.
organic versus like promotion, whatever that means. And then it's all organic. I haven't spent like single second on LinkedIn. It's really interesting. So obviously we're open to people I know, right? So our financial services firms, they do have a concern about the carbon. They do curious about how the compute price will change. Think about if they are trading a lot of AI sort of big names, right? For them, it's like, how do they think about their future earning potentials, right? So a lot of firms they want to get beta for different reasons, right? So my client base can be different. So they are financial services. So I do know those clients from our previous lives. And also the people actual users, so technology firms, which is great because I'm talking to them like, is it helpful for you? Would you pay this much, or what's your pain point? Does it help you with all different solutions? And the third is data center people. So it depends on where they're at with their build planning. They find us to be helpful. So clients engagement, I opened the platform just to a handful, I would say 20 really clients in the sandbox environment. They can play, they can test data, they give me feedback. And then in November, we'll have a real launch, meaning we'll have commercial models, and obviously we'll complementary a little bit, that's at least my right now thoughts. And then obviously the month-to-month SaaS kind of integration. Really the goal is to getting feedbacks and just creating new products very quickly.
Right. And what would have to happen for your platform to like take off? Like, what do you think will have to happen for it to become really big really quickly?
I think a few things. So number one, by the definition of data companies, right? So I don't think my client base will ever become like gigantic, right? If you look at, as I mentioned, the three cohorts of companies, it's not going to be like, millions of people, right? I think thousands of company is more reasonable, at least right now. That's my thinking. And then really, I think next year will be very pivotal for us. So that when the financial products is out, then if you trade products, then you need data. And if you able to hedge your risks, you need data to help you hedge your risks, right? So I think then you will see a hockey stick quickly. I will talk about market makers, in the industry. You think about people who are trading electricity futures, the energies, right? So for them, this is a big factor, right? Even they're trading on market, and there are people who want to get exposure to the brand new asset classes, right? So I do consider this as a brand new asset class. You don't really encounter brand new asset class often in financial services because we're pretty much well covered, right? The commodities, equities, the fixed incomes, and it's a lot of financial innovation happen in and out of other asset classes. But it's a brand new asset class and have a lot of interesting correlation with different asset classes. So this will be really, I think, exciting thing for a lot of people to take.
Okay. And it sounds like essentially on a go-to-market front, you don't face a lot of challenges, right? Because you said yourself, you spend most of the time on product, and then you're not really doing a lot of marketing. So what are the biggest challenges that you're facing today, though? Is it on product? Like what is a really hard thing that you guys have to solve?
So it depends on product. And I won't say I don't spend that much challenging go to market. Go to market for me is like, it's more about explaining to people what I do. So the way I think about this is there are twofold. One is incremental product development, which is making the current product more real time, data resources, data sources, right? Another is leading my customers and my client base, which they haven't even know they need that, or they can use product like that. So this is borrowing experiences from other industries. They have a pinpoint, but they don't know there's actually very mature solutions other industries already have developed. For me is, how do I sort of fit that particular solution to the compute world where benefit the compute market participants, right? So it's leading the clients. So that piece needs some sort of form of collaborations, and I won't call it education, but more about information sharings. So you have to repeat yourself, and see if talking about these weird financial terms, which people is like, what I'm doing this with, the treasury team has to really get into the whole planning, budgeting, risk management, that kind of piece. So that will take a lot of education. So I want to spend more time with talking to people, join conferences, have conversations, and getting feedbacks, right? With the challenges right now, I really excited about some of the product we're building. I think we'll solve, hopefully, give a lot of people confidence, be more agile, and move quickly. So if you think about today, a lot of people, they are industry veterans, right? They were in the GPU industry in day zero, right? For them, everything is, yeah, of course I know how to test this. Yeah, of course I know how to benchmark this. Yeah, of course I know what's trading at what's the normal range. To think about any other large companies globally, right? Not just North America, they move into this, and who can they really trust and verify? And then people are expensive, especially people with that particular knowledge base, right? They're hard to find. They're expensive, right? I really want to democratize that particular resources to others, so everybody can come in efficiently, cheaply, effectively, and accessing things that with comfort mind, saying, "Hey, it's gonna work," right? It's without conflict of interest, right? So you think about any other provider, they're providing something. They won't tell you the thing works, right? And then well, so we really want to be a third party, which we really we won't touch underneath layer. We just really here providing a data reference point, a benchmarking services, a product where you can just test and verify than anything else, right? So that's really something I'm really driving towards. And then with that, it's a lot of technical challenges because we're trying to create standards where there's no standard. We're creating solutions and benchmarking where there's not many visibility and transparency at this point. And it's hard to find talent, to be honest, right? As I said, talent's hard to find, and they generally can be extremely expensive. Finding the right team, which I spent a lot of time, is something I'm pretty sort of keen on, excited about.
And maybe that's one good topic to segue into. So how do you think about team building and hiring at this stage? Because I guess you were not building such technical products before, right?
You're 100% right. You're 100% right. So that's what I think. That's why it makes things very exciting for me. It was like, this is brand new for me, and it's always fun to learn a brand new industry, sort of a pinpoint and figure out a solution. And then it's interesting. Sometimes the question asked is very dumb, very basics. But at the same time, I'm standing in the shoes of my clients, right?
Right.
Why you know, then you didn't realize that can be a problem potentially, right?
Yeah.
So I'm actually asking questions on behalf of potential clients. So that can be interesting. And a technical problem, so getting the right advisors team, the core team, and people passionate believing this vision and mission, it's so critical. So people with talent, have cloud experiences, have GPU experiences, excited about data, excited about underwear, not just but excited about this, right? It's really critical. My company will never be a gigantic company. I don't see my company become like thousands of people, even hundreds of people company. I really want to keep a small core team. And with the AI, we can really, I believe we can really drive to the end goal with not that many people. So that makes every person very critical, culturally fit, and excited about this, and then really heads down and do the best work.
Yeah, that makes absolute sense. Building that sort of culture and that the sort of feeling of importance that everyone matters, right? And everyone's here to really solve hard problems. I think it's very important, right? And sometimes, people or founders who raise too much money, just they just like go into hiring and make those early mistakes where they just bring people who are non-essential to survival or progress of the company, right? And I think eventually anyone who's not like essential at early stage it's just really.
And I think communication costs can be very expensive, right? You think about anything you have to go through many layers, then you back to corporate world, right? Like, why do you do that to yourself, right? So for me, is what's essential when you team inputs. What's obvious things I don't know. Please, everybody, tell me what to do, and we'll figure out a way together, right? You tell me what's better solution. For things I do know what to do, and it's more like verification. I don't want to spend a lot of hours deciding. I mean, not to say that you shouldn't. I'm sure there's a reason for people spend millions of dollars in their logo.
Right. Yeah.
It's 100% not essential for me, and this logo is designed pretty quick. I liked it, right? And then
Right.
I didn't spend thousands of hours deciding what color, right? Like the
Yeah.
font should be. I'm sure it's very critical to a lot of companies, but for now, I think it's less essential to my product. Right? So really be decisive and get to know what's important, and really be agile about what's critical to your clients and to yourself. Infrastructure spend a lot of time to figure out a database. And those I think is critical. It's behind the scene, probably don't see it, but it's something we spend a lot of time on.
Right. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like that takes time, and those are hard things that indeed like are not that obvious, right? To the outside. All right. I think we need to wrap up slowly. So I have those two typical questions that I ask everyone on the show. The first one is, what are the most valuable resources that you use that help you shape your view of what you're doing, right? So where do you sort of get your knowledge from on the market and on the compute, on the future of compute and on everything around it? Like, is it some sort of books, blogs, podcasts, newsletters, anything you like to share?
All above. It's so I'm really new to the GPU world, right? So learning curve has been so fun for me. So I went to chips the past year. Get to know a lot of my friends who I didn't know what they do before I became friends with them. Obviously, I was like, oh, actually, chip designing. What's happening? I'm in this industry too. So talking to a lot of people, ask them questions. I'm always sort of the person who knows the least in any role, which I like to be that way, and learning from everybody. And sometimes people have different opinions. It's not factual. It's just opinions, right? So not cross check each other, but more like, hey, that's your opinion. That's great. You think that's the industry that's going to go this way, and then you think differently. Why? I want to learn both sides, right? For me, there's no biases because I know nothing. So which is always starting the starting point for me. It's all fresh learning. I want to learn things from a factual way. It's amazing. I encourage anyone to go into industry that's newish to them. You have advantage where that you come in with no pre-received biases, and then sort of the way of doing things.
Yeah, I think it could be quite an advantage, right? Because people who are already in the industry, they like question everything and they like everything new or all the new approaches, and they always look through things, through a lens that they sort of build over years, right? Which is not always good, right?
Yeah, think about Elon Musk, right? Like from first principle,
Right.
like isn't this way? When I'm trying to solve a problem, and tell me why not can be resolved through this way, right? So I
Right.
think from that angle is great. Just to think through really found the problem itself.
And the second question is, what is the most exciting thing that you see out there happening in let's say data space?
Oh, it's a lot. So people think of data because we're talking about AI, right? Think about training data. Usually as training data, which is critical. Don't get me wrong. So I think that's still going to be critical for the next years to come, right? What we do is actually, if you think about providing monitoring, metering, like oversight of that AI workflow, I think that kind of data can be very interesting to people as well. So different output, data is output and then input training, right? So I think that's quite exciting. In general, I'm really excited about. I mean, this industry is so. I think everyone is so anxious because things move so quickly, both software side and the hardware side. You think about from the large language model, every few months something came out, which is awesome, right? And people give up training. I guess some of us small companies give up training. And then from technical side, the new design software, new architecture from hardwares, right? So everything pivots so quickly, and then which can be a huge benefit, but sometimes take people to catch up, right? You think about you have new architecture design, which is why the whole push delayed, the 200, the packaging, everything cost by, right? And things take time for all the industry people to line up and just to align and then make things scalable. So those can be very interesting. And then the data from that, like how do we make sure people transparency, tell people where you are at and when things can be aligned. So those kind of collaboration, I think, can be critical.
Yeah, there's absolutely a lot happening in the whole data and AI space and cloud infra space, and that's why I guess we're building in that space specifically, right? All right. So, anything, Carmen, you'd like to share to the audience? Anything from you that we haven't covered yet that you'd like everyone to know?
I like to encourage a lot of more females become entrepreneurs. And then I'm a mother of two daughters. I always want to make that clear. And then I'm not saying that people should do everything at one time, but I do believe a lot of girls should, at least if you're passionate about an idea, you should go ahead and do it. I think the environment now is a lot more friendlier to female founders. I do see a lot more female investors as well, and a lot more people joining. I think, I encourage women everywhere to think about this. If you're passionate about something, do it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really, really good one, and I second that message. I think it's really great to see more of diversity in that world, right? Like in those conference rooms and so on. Like you just don't want to see like all kinds of like guys that just like talk about like nerdy stuff, right? And you really want to see different sort of perceptions and views, and it obviously comes from all the different backgrounds and genders and so on, right? And yeah, definitely like that one. So yeah, thank you for that.
Nice, thank you, Rob.
All right, thanks, Carmen. It was great having you, and good luck building. I'm really looking forward to test your platform and to hear more about SiliconData.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed our discussion. Cloud Frontier is brought to you by SimplyBlock, an intelligent database storage orchestrator. Get more IOPS and lower latency for your databases in the cloud. Visit our website at simplyblock.io for more information.